Tēnei te mihias kia tātou ko tāu mai nei I tēnei rā, ki tēnei wānanga, ki te noho tahi, ki te kōrero tahi, ki te wānanga tahi, ngā āhuatanga kei mui I amata. Thank you, welcome everybody to this wānanga, to this webinar. I will be starting our day with a karakia, no reira kia inoi tata. E onore, e krore ki te atua, mo tāna mau ngā rongo ki ringa I te whenua, e whakaro pai ki ngā tāngata katoa. Amen. Hei mua koe I a mātou I hua, hei tohi o mātou mahi katoa. Koe anō hoki, hei whakakaha I a mātou, kia whai kroria ai mātou ro te au mahi katoa. He mea tīmata, he mea mahi, he mea whakaosi roto I a koe. Kia whiwhi ai mātou I te oranga tonutanga. Tāti mea I atu whai tēnei mātou I tēnei rā. Kroria ki tō ingoa tapu. Amen. Kia ora tātou. Hello, everybody. I'd like to give a big shout out to everyone who has joined our webinar today. It's really good. One of the big things that I'm starting to notice is that there's a wider spread of us joining this kaupapa. Functionally, the Changemakers Network is a place where we all come, we all sit around the fire, and we have a kōrero about the things that we're doing, the kaupapa that we're passionate about. Just so that we can all share in that kōrero. One thing that I'm hoping to get out of the next year or so is a community of like-minded individuals working towards a singular goal. One of my jobs is with Safe Man, Safe Family, and the leader of that, Vic Tamati, he has this idea about a violence-free Aotearoa by 2050. And so those are the kinds of things that we need to be working towards, that we need to be doing. And I feel like this network is a critical piece because we're all doing this mahi. And so if we share that mahi, if we allow ourselves to be open to the possibility of growth within this space, then 2050 looks like a really, really a Hawaii ho for us. I'm going to hand the rako straight over to Matt Brown for him to introduce himself. Matt Brown has been long in this mahi doing his presentation, and he has come today with a presentation of his own. No reira kei te mihi kia koe te brother. Matt, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Hone, brother. I think I've cracked that also, so I'll try and tell me if this works.
Come on.
Is my screen up? Yeah?
Yeah.
Is it changing slides?
Yes, well done.
Kia ora tātou. Talofa lava, ma lo lava le soifua. Honoured to be here, always honoured to be in this space, working alongside MSD and the Changemakers. So yeah, whawhitai te lava for you guys being here and being even interested in my kōrero. I suppose the topic I want to touch on today is critical consciousness. To me, they sound like two fancy words, but in all honesty, I would sum it up in a simple word as awareness. Having awareness of our society, having awareness of yourself, awareness of your whānau is super important. And it's something that I see lacking a lot in our sector, in all sectors, but mainly in this, family violence prevention, social workers, police, people who work with people, a lot of the times lack awareness. And so my summary of critical consciousness would be this: knowing how the game really works, understanding the social and economic forces at play, seeing beyond the surface and recognizing the barriers that hold our people back, using that knowledge to build something stronger. It's consciousness that drives action, empowering ourselves and our community to elevate and innovate. And so for those, I'm sure most people know me starting out in this mahi. I started out as a barber, but really I've been, I started this mahi when I was 15 years old, and I stood in my high school English class. We were all taught to do a 3-minute speech. And for my 3-minute speech in high school, I talked about domestic violence. I talked about growing up, witnessing my father beat the shit out of my mum, violence, gangs, police at my house. And I would often lie to my friends walking to school with that I had a family member who was a cop, because that's how many times the police were at my house. And so, yeah, when I stood up in front of my peers at 15, you can only imagine the shame and the whakama that I had presenting my speech on domestic violence. And I remember vividly at lunchtime, it was the period before lunchtime, my Samoan boys, my Pasifika boys came up to me and said, bro, this shit happens to all of us, but you're bringing shame to our culture. You're dishonoring your mum, our parents talking about this stuff. Yeah, that didn't really land with me well. It was either speak up or take my own life. And I'm so honored, as many of you do, speaking up. When we speak up, we learn that our story is not our story. Not just our story, it's a story of many of our whānau who still to this day suffer silently behind closed doors. And so, you know, that tamariki there in the photo, a 5-year-old Matt with his arm up, little activist as it looks like. I really struggled to look at the photo of little Matt. Even before then, at 5 years old, at the age of 3, was when I remember being first sexually abused, waking up to my dad pulling my mum down the hallway, Bahu here, looking at my little brother in the room and, you know, just saying, oh, they're at it again. You know, violence was just normal. I spoke at the city mission here in Otutahi a couple of weeks ago, and it got me just being there, triggered me. I just started crying in the beginning of my speech because I remember using their services, lining up at the food banks with my mum holding her hand, being kicked out on the street by our father, hiding in the clothing bins when the Salvation Army used to have their clothing bins. Mum would put us in there to sleep at night because not all of us siblings could fit in the car. So us little ones would hide in the clothing bins, you know. And so domestic violence ran rampant in my household. Once We Warriors was a comedy show for us. Bithiki had nothing on my mum's black eyes. Mum's black eyes were way bigger because mum had to go to church like that. People seen the violence, seen the bruises, but no one ever spoke up. No one ever spoke up. And so I suppose when I got into barbering, you know, when I got into my mahi of cutting hair, it was, I was taught from traditional barbers, don't talk about politics, don't talk about religion, don't talk about sex. And I'm sitting here thinking, mate, that's everything that us men think about, or, you know, especially me as a Pasifika man. We go to church. Most men that I know think about sex, think about, you know, their partners, girlfriends, etc. And politics affects all of us, you know. So I thought to myself, I'm talking about this shit. And so it was in this barbershop, you know. I started in the shed, just to touch briefly. You could literally fit 2 Polynesians in there. It was super small. Bought it from Bunnings Warehouse. Bought my first clippers from the Warewhare, Remington clippers. On the box it says titanium blades, but, you know, that shit touched Polynesian here, blunt. But I started with what I had, whānau. This grew into a barbershop on Riccarton Road, which is the busiest street in Otutahi, in the South Island. But it was in this space where really cutting men's hair, listening to Tane stories, men who didn't look like me, men who wore suits, uniforms, to the brothers wearing gang patches, wearing the latest J's with the latest drug deals, you know. I soon learned that pain, trauma, childhood abuse did not discriminate. You know, different kinds of men, ethnicities, white, brown, black, all these men carried mamai pain that they didn't have any space to talk to or anyone to talk to about it. Not even their partners knew some of their stories. And so I was lucky to be approached by MSD. I had done some work for where I first started cutting hair in a place called Aranui in the O3 on the east side of Christchurch, where my garden tin shed was. I did a collaboration with Actus, the community centre there, and we did a father's video where MSD kind of seen me present on this video clip for fathers. And so they approached us and wanted to collaborate. Obviously coming from the hood, I'm like, what does the government want? But, you know, I soon learned that there's good people in these spaces who want change, who are trying to push shit uphill, as we say it. And so I couldn't really paint everyone in that system with the same, you know, colored brush. And so, yeah, got to meet beautiful people who I ended up calling aunties and uncles and cousins and bros. And so, yeah, they funded us. And so we started running these barber wānanga. I always had this dream to not just run barber events where men will start cutting hair and compete who's the best barber and who would flex, who had the best fade, but to really help our communities use what we had, use the tools that we had, to really create change and foster, you know, safe environments where we could tell no and kōrero. And again, so this is raising consciousness, you know, collective consciousness. And so through these barber hui that MSD funded, we ran 4 in the space of 2 years. You know, 50 barbers attended each of these, and it was beautiful. You know, these poor barbers thought they were coming to learn how to cut hair, which they were, But they were coming to learn how to, you know, do the mahi and have these hard conversations. Because I'm always of the belief, who are we to do this work with the people in our community? Who am I to do this work with the men who sit in my chair if I don't do this work myself? I knew firsthand that working with people close up, I had to do the work, or else you're going to get checked. You know, men know when men can smell a fake ass. We know when you're about it, when you're not about it, when you're all eats, all those things. And so I knew firsthand that I had to be about it and do the mahi myself. There was therapy, there was having hard, long conversations with, you know, my close people, my wife, all those things, all those uncomfortable things. I had to make friends with discomfort. And so going into this hui, you know, these wānanga, these Baba hui were researched by he researched, where we came up with this our She Is Not Your Rehab process model. I want to share with you guys. So, you know, it's really understanding that this way, what alcohol, what trauma and pain due to many things like colonization, but many various things, that this was never our culture. This was never our way. And for me as a Samoan Tane, as a Samoan brother, born up in South Auckland, parents immigrated from Samoa in the 50s and 60s. And so living here in Aotearoa and adopting this beautiful whenua as our home, I never really understood. I always thought that we were like Once We Warriors. You know, Once We Warriors was glamorized and this is who we are. We're violent, monsters, perpetrators, etc. Obviously, when I started doing the work to heal, researching and understanding our own indigenous ways, violence was never our culture, you know, especially towards women. As a Samoan man, we had a thing called whiangainga, which is the covenant between brother and sister. If you had a sister in your family, if you were gifted a daughter from Atua, you were considered blessed, because women were obviously the carriers of our babies and, you know, carriers of the next generation. And so a lot of Tongans still practice whiangainga in their cultures, where you're not even allowed in the same room as your sister or girl cousins, you know. And so this was something that I had learned in the Samoa way, whiangainga. And so understanding traditional indigenous views of masculinity and collective care, then introducing colonization. What did colonization bring? It brought Te Po Nui, which is, you know, the great darkness, harm, trauma, shame, you know, fragmented views of what masculinity was. Once we're warriors, all of us are warriors, all of us are monsters. Not true, but that's what shame and trauma does. And obviously trauma, when you understand the word trauma, the root word of trauma is wound. It's the Greek word for wound. And so a lot of us are carrying these wounds that we can't physically see, but we see it manifest through violence, through addiction, through, you know, all these things that we see in society. You know, people wonder why our tamariki are doing, what do you call them? Robberies and all these things, you know, committing crime. Like, it's trauma. And trauma sits within us when we do not have a person who meets us, or anyone, a witness to meet us with care and compassion and to help us navigate those hard feelings that we sit with. Gabo Mate has the best definition, I believe, of trauma, which is trauma is not what happened to you. Trauma is what happens inside of you as a result of what happened to you. And so I think for a lot of us tamariki who are sitting at home, you know, at home alone, no one loves me. I know I thought that no one loves me. I'm abandoned. But really, mum and dad are probably out working, you know, trying to make ends meet to pay the bills. They have their own stresses. But because I'm a child and no one's there to navigate my thoughts and my inner world, that now has become trauma. So that's trauma. We're not going to go into trauma Olympics, what trauma is worse. But, you know, trauma is that feeling left unchecked, no one to help navigate those feelings. And so this really becomes our inner world and our inner core beliefs. And so with these wānanga that MSD helped funded, this is where we create a connection. And connection is really where we start to, you know, hui, wānanga, talanoa, kōrero about these hard things. I remember after sharing my story every time at these wānanga, quite raw, you know, I would go into detail of, you know, sexual abuse and physical violence that I witnessed and experienced as a kid. After, I'd always do this activity called the Circle of Courage, and I'll get all the barbers to stand around in a big circle, and I say, Tane, you know, I start off with an easy question, you know, step inside the circle, bros, if you've ever felt misunderstood, you know. So 50 boys are in the circle, You know, stay inside the circle if you've ever felt heartbroken. So usually you get the younger guys step out and the older guys are still in the circle, you know, experience that in the relationships. One of the questions we asked at one of these wānanga was, you know, step inside the circle if you've ever thought about suicide. You know, out of 50 men, 47 tāne stood in that circle, you know, and we just keep dwindling it down, you know. Stay inside the circle if you've thought about suicide the last month, thought about suicide the last week, if you've thought about suicide the last 24 hours. And at that one of these wānanga, 3 gentlemen were still in their circle the last 24 hours. And you just seen tears, like you couldn't hear a pin drop. You would just see all these tāne, brown, white, Māori, Pasifika, in tears, you know. And this was really the space to wānanga and create this connection where we learned, shit, I'm not the only one here that's struggling. You know, again, when you leave your thoughts and your stories unchecked, they become your trauma. And so when these tāne obviously realized they weren't alone and they felt connected through their stories of, you know, suicidality or unaliving themselves, wanting to unalive themselves, we then created this space, you know, Te Ao Marama, enlightenment, where healing, support, social and cultural cohesion, compassion and acceptance could, you know, work. And so when I think of collective consciousness, when I think of, you know, critical consciousness, it really is seeing the barriers that hold us back. And for me, in the space, in the mahi, when people ask me, Matt, what's the greatest advice you can give to people who work with people? My answer is always simple. Do the work yourself. Do the work yourself. Honestly, like from that place, when you do the work yourself, everything else comes. You know, you can start creating your processes and strategies and programs and all that stuff. But that shit don't mean jack if you don't do the work yourself. Because the truth is, you're going to get triggered to shit in this mahi. People are going to trigger you. And if you are not grounded, stable, and have your support people, your supervisors, your counselors, your therapists, whatever it is, your support network around you, this mahi gets really, really hard. It gets really, really hard. It gets lonely. It gets arduous. And you just want to throw in the towel. And so I always encourage people, this process of model that he kind of developed through our research, through the researching our wānanga, our books, is a beautiful process model.
Nice.
So, am I talking too much, One?
No, you go for gold, brother. Go for gold. This is what I wanted to hear. You're the one with the experience and the within this mahi. And so it's not me that needs to talk, it's you that needs to talk. Carry on, brother.
And so yeah, again, using what I had, you know, went and bought myself some budget Remington clippers, bought myself a budget shed from Bunnings Warehouse. I started with what I had, and what I have is a skill set other than my amazing, stunning, beautiful, talented, social entrepreneurial wife who is the shit. We're both creative, you know, and us together, my wife is the ideas person. I'll help execute it. I'm a real artistic person, obviously growing up around creativity, hip hop, all that stuff. And so campaigns is one of our things that we love to do, and it's our outlet really. And I was just tired of seeing so many campaigns through the media, another campaign of shaming men, another campaign showing that men are monsters and men are evil and the patriarchy and all this stuff. And I was like, and when I'm sitting here talking to men in my barbershop, that actually men are not bad and evil as society paints us. And because this is all you're seeing portrayed on the media, the good men decide to stay quiet because they don't want to get cancelled, you know? And so my goal as a tāne was to really bring these voices to the forefront, to really inspire and have impact to the other men who are too whakama, too shy to stand up and call their boys forward, call their boys out. And so campaign work was our way to invite tāne to the conversation. Because the truth is, everywhere I was going and traveling and talking to people about domestic violence, which is a very taboo topic, a lot of shame around this topic, no one wants to engage in it. The room was always packed, filled with our wahine, women pleading, crying, tāne, men, stop hurting us, stop hurting our babies, stop killing us. But it was hard to ever see men in the room. And so my goal with our campaign work was to really invite tāne to the conversation. And when I think of inviting men to the conversation, I think of, you know, drawing out an invitation to a party. No one wants to come to a party if the invitation sucks, right? That's the first point of contact. So we need to work on our invitation. To me, my invitation to the men when I work with them one-to-one is my invitation is myself. I'm going to model what a healthy masculine man should look like. You know, that's my invitation to the men on face-to-face, you know, kanohi ki te kanohi. But online, which is a whole completely different machine, how do we invite men into the conversation? And so our campaign work is stuff that we've really tried to hone in on. And so these are a few of them. Dear Mr. Rock went viral. That was our biggest campaign. Dwayne Johnson himself ended up engaging in it, wrote a letter to my son. My son wrote a letter to him. He ended up responding back to my son, which on the letter said, you know, hey, Angelo, it's me, Uncle Rock. And so I tell my son, you've got that in writing. You just claim that the Rock is your uncle. That was beautiful. You know, that first week of that campaign, we had over 20 million views in the first week. Our Not All Men campaign that we did with Australia, these Tane here, again, that phrase, not all men, I was sensitive going into creating this invitation to our men, because a lot of feminists, a lot of women, you know, this is their phrase. They've used this phrase to, again, telling men to stop hurting us. I took that phrase and wanted to invite Tane. Instead of shaming them with the not all men, I wanted to invite them. Not all men break cycles, or you. Not all men perpetrate violence, you know, do you. Not all men heal, or you. And so that campaign went viral in Australia, and we ended up having thousands and thousands of Tane reaching out to us, you know, asking us about it. And so, yeah, my favorite one to date, other than the Rock one, is the Love You Bro one, which is we're about to release our next one next month. We just launched our UK one last week, but that Love You Bro last year that we launched, Love You Bro Day, again, to me, was not leaving the work to our wahine. It was engaging with your everyday Tane, everyday man. You know, if you're gonna write Love You Bro, we've dedicated the first Friday of September to Love You Bro Day. And part of that campaign is getting Tane all around the world, all around the country first, I was thinking, to write Love You Bro on your face. And the reason for that was, obviously, when you're walking to work or at school and people read Love You Bro, oh, you know, it's bold, it's a conversation starter. And to me, it's like, if you really love your bros, you call them forward. If you really love your bros, you show up, you care for them, you know? And so, yeah, that campaign, again, went viral too. It's headed at, it's gone on all platforms together, combined, it's ahead of 50 million views. So again, super proud that these conversations are landing with our Tane. I got told last year, over in Australia, they had a advertising agency advertising awards, and the guy who was the person who won the what do you call it when they've done their time, legacy, like those kind of awards, the person who's dedicated their lives to the sector, kind of this guy, Balangi guy with a suit, middle-aged white guy, jumped on stage and just said, oh, you know, I'm winning this, you know, the whatever award that he was winning, but I seen this amazing campaign that really moved me to my core. And I just want to say to my best friend, who's been my business partner, with our agency, this award's not just mine, it's ours. But I just want to tell you, I love you, bro. And that was the campaign that he was moved by. And so I just thought, who knew that this brown boy in my little garden tent in the east side of Christchurch, telling my story of pain and trauma and want to warrior stuff, that the kaupapa from doing the mahi, moving from Te Pōnui to Te Aomarama, that this would now resonate with a white man across the ditch in Australia. You know? And that's the power. That's the power of owning your story. That's the power of being courageous and brave and owning your story and doing the work, the work. And so, again, MST's been amazing in helping us, seeing our mahi develop, evolve over the years. Inner Boy was developed, which is free for all Tane here in Aotearoa. People always ask me, Matt, you talk about doing the work. What does doing the work look like? And these are men online. You know, I receive messages on men online all the time. What does doing the work look like? And so with this campaign with Inner Boy, just to keep putting content out there, I wanted to show Tane online what doing the work looked like. One of the days on our app, we encourage Tane to write a letter to their younger self, And with this, I took, obviously doing therapy myself for many, many years, and I still do therapy for different things. I took on the 3 hours of psychotherapy, which is revisit, revise, and relinquish. Sometimes we need to revisit some of those hard, painful things if we want to do the healing work, which is, it's not rainbows and butterflies, it's not unicorns and, singing kumbaya. It's healing is flipping tears, shadow boxing, boxing, not shadow boxing your partner, guys, but shadow boxing. Revisit. Sometimes you have to revisit some of those painful things. Where did this core belief, where I believe women are controlling, women are manipulating, where did this core belief, stem from? Then we have to revise. Oh, my mom saying no to my dad, or my dad saying, oh, you controlling bitch. Oh, was she controlling? Was my mom just trying to have a voice? So again, you have to revise that memory. Okay, mom was actually just trying to, give her input. Is this a partnership, or is this a coercive, power over relationship? And so that's revisit, revise, and then relinquish. Relinquish is giving yourself a new truth. My dear mum wasn't controlling. My dear mum just cared for us and wanted to, she stepped in when she seen my father be abusive or my father take control where it ended up being violent. My mum was just trying to protect us. So that's what rising, giving yourself a new truth. Women are not like that, and so that's what this is. We launched this campaign in Australia, Dear Inner Boy. And so I just want to share this video with you guys. Tell me if it works. If it doesn't, then I'll cut it.
Dear little Ben.
Dear little Dean.
Dear little Matt.
Dear little Noel.
Dear little Patrick.
Dear little Dino.
Dear little Ray. I want you to know that the little light inside of you will shine bright one day. Others can see the beauty in themselves. Keep being you.
You've got this, little man. Everything's going to be okay. You're surrounded by love.
You're going to go through hell and back, but I promise it'll work out better than you imagine.
You've done so well. You should know that it's all going to be okay. Don't worry about the bad stuff. The experience made you strong and knowing. Well done to us.
Don't be afraid to fail. Learn. Your mistakes are your biggest teaching moments. Don't run from them. Don't think you aren't good enough. You are more than enough. I'm proud of you and who you are going to become.
You don't need the world, you just need to live happy.
Dear little Lance, I want you to know that you are not alone, that you are stronger than you think. It was not your fault. You were only a child. You are loved by so many, but more so, I love you.
Knowing you are with me in ways I have not always appreciated gives me wisdom, courage, and hope. I would not have this without you. Love you.
Love you, little Noel. Big
Love from Big Ben.
Love you.
Love you, little man. Love, old Max.
That campaign was beautiful. I've done that activity with Tane all around the world, in prisons, and honestly, it's some of the most gangster shit I've ever seen. Seeing these men who have perpetrated heinous crimes write a letter to themselves and then just crumble. You see their pen shake, their hand shake, because this mahi's hard. And again, if you're going to work with people and be effective and impactful, do the work yourself. Do the work yourself. And so, it's been an honor of mine to travel the globe, to countries and talk to Tane, young boys all around the world about doing the work yourself and raising critical consciousness, understanding, the systemic systems that are in place to keep people down, keep people from not healing, that are not working. And so all I can control, I'm not a politician or know all the ins and outs of that system, but all I can control and model is how to be a good father, is how to be a good husband, is how to heal and do the work myself. That's really where I've worked from. And, you know, to the cherry on top is just my creativity alongside my wife, who's brilliant, and us just collaborating and coming up with innovative ways to elevate our people, especially our Tāne. And I just wanted to share a few feedback that I've received from Tāne. I've done some work in Wales over the last 2 years. This is some of the feedback I've received from young kids after speaking to them. I've spoken to hundreds of schools now. You know, Matt, thank you for showing us today at FITS. FITS is a very, it's a Muslim school. And I thought to myself, you know, British, what's my story here in Aotearoa, Otutahi, in the hood? How's my story going to translate and connect with, you know, tamariki over there? It's been amazing, beautiful landing with them. This one, here's one of my favorite messages. Hey, Matt, I hope you get this, but understand if you don't or can't reply. I really wanted to share this with you. I was there in your talk today and I needed to hear that. I faced my own challenges at home and at school, especially after losing mum to cancer, and seeing someone who's made it through tough times gave me hope with real stories and solutions. It's motivating to know that it is possible to break cycles. When Dad got home tonight from work, I talked to him about your speech today. He was so interested, he found your TED talk and we watched it together. Bro, it's the first time I've seen my dad cry. I've heard him cry from his room after losing mum, but he's never cried in front of us. I suppose I'm writing to say thank you so much. You won't ever know the impact you have given us boys, but you've impacted me and my dad already. Love you, Matt, and I hope my mum gets to meet your mum somewhere in heaven. When I read that, I just cried and I was like, oh, like who, you know, for young kids to connect with my story with my mum, you know, grief is universal. I've learned in this mahi that a lot of Tāne are not angry. A lot of Tāne are grieving. They're grieving childhoods, they're grieving, you know, papa, they're grieving mama who never showed up for them, or mum getting abused. A lot of our Tāne are grieving. And so anger is just the secondary emotion of what grief is. And so, yeah, when I say it's been hundreds and hundreds of messages from Tamariki, it literally has been. And so, yeah, this is the honor. Doing this in Wales, Wales has jumped on board and their government has funded all our books. I mean, we don't make no money of this. They've bought all the books to go into all the prisons in Wales. The Welsh system has 4,500 Tāne incarcerated. And so gifting our She's Not Your Rehab, we've printed an international version for them because they've got all their services on the back. So yeah, I end my corridor that, and we'll do some questions. Just, it all started from me doing the work. It all started from me being brave and courageous to own my story. As hard as it's been, doing therapy, having hard conversations with my wife, having hard conversations with my brothers, my ainga, my whānau, about our story. Because it's not just my story, it's my whānau's story. Right? It's been hard but beautiful. Doing the work is hard, but the results are beautiful. You know, breaking cycles is possible. To see my children live a completely different life, it's amazing. And to me, that's where part of my heart has now moved to, you know, is our tamariki, because, you know, Tāne who are perpetrating violence, which is my heart, that's my passion, because that's my brothers, that's my uncles, those are my cousins. Those are the boys that I grew up with. But part of my vision now is moving to our tamariki is to also help them, because our tamariki are looking to our papas to change, you know, and we need all of us as a collective to help our papas to change. But our tamariki are still having to navigate those hard feelings by themselves, because dad's not ready, mom's not ready yet. And so part of my goal is to also help them navigate. And so helping them to navigate, we've decided to write a children's book, which is This Is Not Yours to Carry. My wife asked me a question, you know, all the times that you lived in and out of women's refuge, what's the one thing that you wish someone said to you? And I said to my wife this one time, look, I will always forever be grateful to Women's Refuge. My mum wouldn't have lived as long as she did if not for Women's Refuge and their kaupapa. But I wish a social worker or someone who was working in there sat me down and my siblings and said, this is not yours to carry. You know, so I always thought it was mine to carry. It was my job to make dad happy, my job to help mum, you know, do better and clean around the house so dad wouldn't get angry, all those things. Us tamariki, if no one is sitting us down to navigate those hard feelings that we keep inside, that now becomes trauma. And so this is the reason why we've decided to target our tamariki. So we've got a whole bunch of these coming out over the next year. My oldest girl is 22 years old. Can you believe I have an adult for a child?
Wow.
She's the illustrator of our children's book. So her and my wife working alongside creating this, this collection of books, which is based on the ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences. But yeah, that's my corridor. I want to finish, and it's possible to change the narrative, whānau, but any questions?
Kia ora whānau. There's a chat function down the bottom. If you want to ask a pātai, please share your pātai into the chat, and I'll read the questions out as we go. I did have a pātai for you, Matt, and it's specifically around, so a lot of your mahi comes from you being able to tell your story. Aside from the things that you have mentioned, what are some of the small moments or the small things that have encouraged you or have given you the impetus to share your kōrero? Because we all know that this is the first and biggest barrier for someone who is doing this, mate. Just being able to say, oh yeah, I was abused, or this happened to me, or this happened. And so we always rely on things like our men's group, our circles, but even that takes time. And so in your experience, what have been some of the smaller things that have happened for you that have encouraged you to share your kōrero?
Oh, just shared trauma always feels less traumatic. When you share your trauma with another brother who's traumatized, it feels less traumatic. You don't feel alone. And so I think just seeing, I've heard some of my homies who are some of the biggest gangsters in the country, to some of the homies who are on the opposite fence, trying to help our communities who are wearing the blue uniform. And so you're hearing, even in sharing my story, you see the light bulb turn on. I was like, oh shucks, not all gangsters are bad. Oh shucks, not all police are bad, And so it's people are hard to hate up close. And so I think when you have the courage to tell your story, and when I think of courage, people think courage is just vomiting your story. That's not courage. Sometimes that's stupidity. It's telling your story to people that are safe. It's being wise with who you're going to tell. You don't want to walk away feeling, oh shit, now I have a vulnerability hangover, and I feel more shit than I did going into telling this story. So I think it's finding the right people, safe people, and I try and stay away from this whole no judgment pop up, because the truth is we all judge. You're judging whether this person is safe enough to talk to, or judging this person is, we're all judging. But I think what we have to get to is no condemnation. You can share. I'm not going to condemn you, bro. I'm going to hold space for you. And so I think, just seeing the light bulb turn on for when I share my story, that it happens in all communities. My wife used to work on the family violence lines here in Aotearoa and the suicide lines, and she said it wasn't the brown people bringing her; it was the people who were educated. It was the teachers, the doctors who were ringing her for help because they were too much shame to ring the police. And so it happens in all communities. It happens behind your white picket fences. And so, I think understanding that you're really not alone, with your mamai, and just seeing the light bulb turn on for other tane, it gives me, it's encouraged me over the years to keep sharing.
Thank you for that, brother. Brian Gardner has a pātai. He's wondering what gives you the strength to keep stepping into challenging spaces, and how do you look after yourself? How do you look after yourself and your well-being?
Man, I go back and forward. So obviously, growing up in a very violent home, my dad really wired my brain. No one can ever do worse to you guys than what I can do to you. So it didn't matter whether I was sitting in front of a Mongol mob leader, a King Cobra leader, or a brother in a suit and tie who just have a complete different worldview to me. I've always, that's kind of wired my brain. But then also humanizing people. Well, no one's shame and pain doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter what color your skin is, what ethnicity, or what your background is. And I really believe that. I really believe that because I've heard enough men's stories through the barber chair to understand that no one, it doesn't discriminate, you know, no one's immune to that kaupapa of shame and pain. What carries me in, I want a safer Aotearoa for my children. I want a safer Aotearoa for my sons and my daughters. I have 2 daughters, I have 1 boy. I want their future to be safe. And so I do this mahi for them. What fills my cup is my children. I'm an introvert, so it helps, you know, like I go, obviously, my mahi, it's social. I'm talking to people, giving my energy, but you won't see me in the club. You won't see me in social gatherings of, you know, let's go and network. I'm at home. Like, I'm at home with my children. I'm at home with my wife. Yeah, so that's what fills my cup. And I have supervisors. I have stunning supervisors who have been in the sector for 20, 30 years. Before I put up a post, or I think I'm like triggered because someone said something stupid online, and I'm like writing a post, writing a post. I'll send it to my supervisors. This is wise to put up. Like, just sit on it for a day, mate. I'm like, okay.
Aparto from Graham McCulloch, chair runner. How do we get a set of the children's book? The children's.
Kia ora mātua, Graham. Thank you for your question. Look, we would, if you could email info@sheisnotyourrehab. So I put up that slide before about donating books. That slide is really targeted at corporates and people in business who have the funds and the means to fund the book. We have about 150 organizations that we're trying to get these boxes of books out to. So if you could just email us, Matua, and we will get that to you guys. Safe man, safe family, eh? Yeah. I mean,
I'll be gathering up all of the information from the webinar today and how we can engage with the stuff that you've put on today. I'll add it into our weekly email and I'll send that out to everybody tomorrow. If you want to carry on further with some of the kōrero that has happened today.
Yeah, thank you. And our goal is to get it into the hands of people who are working with our whānau. It's been a beautiful resource. Like, we've honestly had hundreds of messages, emails. My poor PA, Rochelle, she's like, honestly, it's like every day there's about 10 messages from teachers, from parents who are reading the book, and they're reading it to their children, but they're also reading to their little selves. Like, my gosh, these stuff that I've carried for so many years. One of our friends who's a therapist here in Otetahi at Christchurch Women's Hospital, she spent an hour in her session reading the book, the Tamariki book, our children's book, to the woman in prison. And she went through page for page for a whole hour session, and she said the women were in tears. They all recognized that they were carrying so many things that it was never theirs to carry. And so, yes, we've written it for children, but it's targeted at the children that live within us adults too. So,
a message from the whanaunga Billy Whaanga. Thank you very much, Matt, for all of it. The example, the work, the passion is all felt. What's one thing that you've done for you today?
Thank you, Bill. Also, first thing I do every morning is I get up and go to the gym.
Fair enough.
So if you've used my Inner Boy app, it's a different version of me on that app. It's the bigger version of me. I always tell people, look, it's a health app, guys. So no, jokes. This is the version me now. What I did for me this morning, I got up at 4 o'clock this morning. My quiet time is going to the gym, and then I come home and I just listen to music, do some breath work, and then I wake my kids up about 6:30 and I make them breakfast. So that's my routine Monday to Friday. Yeah, I'm a boring papa, man. Yeah. But also, what fills my cup, to answer Matua Brian's thing, is I love traveling. I will always, we were poor growing up, obviously living through refuge, city mission, in the car. When we would watch TV, I'd always think, man, that steak looks really good, eh? Like, me and my little brother, we always like, man, like, what do those white people's food look like? So every time I travel, honestly, I love food, and I'm blown away by different cultures. But it also puts things into perspective. Like, I'm not playing Trauma Olympics here, but when you are born in Aotearoa, you really have won the lottery in life. I'm walking in India, in Delhi, and I'm seeing babies lying in bins. And it's not to compare, but for me, it's it gives me a grounding of being grateful for what I have. I don't wish what happened to me as a child on anyone, but I'm grateful I've done the work to heal and have what I have now.
So there's a partai here that's
Thanks, Bill. Also,
an important one, is especially around the change makers, mate. How can we best, from Jeremy, by the way, how can we best support our tāne transition from holding space to actively moving into a place of growth, using their trauma as a critical foundation for building a clearer and healthier perception of themselves? Because this is the kōrero around doing the work, right? And so how do we support the transition from, like, it's from awareness to growth? Because that's the mahi that you've been doing, well, pretty much since you came to this.
yeah, implement awareness is one thing, but implementing it, action, the awareness. I know people who have had all the awareness in the world and don't do jack shit with the awareness. Awareness is doing the work, and again, what's doing the work? It's actioning it, putting it into practice. You are gonna fuck up. You are gonna do some mistakes. You are gonna get cancelled, but you know what? Own that stuff, and then you apologize and move on. And people who choose to freeze you in the past, people who choose to freeze you in your, when you've stuffed up, let them. That's not up to you. That's not your stuff to carry or bag. You just carry on doing the mahi and action it. And so for me, it was, what does actioning look like? It looked like opening up a barbershop. I was faithful with my little garden tin shed. It grew to the point where I was cutting from 6 a.m. to midnight, 6 days a week. And so I then grew into this big barbershop. It grew into 6 chairs, it grew into 9 chairs, then it grew into multiple barbershops. Like, I was faithful with what I had. I started with what I had. I didn't jump the gun and, I want to be that barber in America. Like, I started with what I had. I had my story. I had my Remington clippers. Start with what you had, action it, and just be faithful with what's in front of you.
A partai from Adelina. I feel like it's easier for men to open up to other men. What things, as a female, could we do better to help our men open up to us? Tēnā koe mo tērā partai. That's an absolutely wonderful partai, because not all the change makers are all men. And it's not as if we're trying to push away our wahine who have been in the space, who have held this space. But yeah, man.
I'm of two minds with that. I think I'm of two minds of that because I opened up more to women than I did to tāne. I think women are just wired that way to, they feel everything in their gut, all those things. I think women are, my experience, I've always found women more safe to open up to. But when I've opened up to a tāne, it's been deeper mahi, because they've changed my narrative. The first perpetrator of my life was my father. They're my brothers, they're my uncles. So all the men in my life, I had these walls up. I did not trust men. So women were always more the people that I would talk to. So I think wahine, I don't have much advice to women. Women are good at holding space for us, tāne. But I think if you can then transition or find a safe tāne in your community, in your groups, in your friend groups, that you can encourage your tāne to sit with, I find deeper. And so a lot of my deep inner work, I've found a beautiful Samoan therapist, a beautiful Maori therapist who are just, I owe my healing journey to these beautiful tāne, deep work. They have helped me with addiction, that have helped me with grief. It's been very transforming sitting with these tāne. But the first person that created that safe space for me was my wife, was my strong Ngāpuhi wife, who said, I love you, but you need to check your ass in the therapy. I'm here to check your ass in the therapy. It's not my job to be your rehab center. I will support you and cheer you on, but you got to do the work yourself. And I was like, okay, thank you. But yeah, I'm off two minds. I know some tāne will only open up to tāne, but I also know a lot of tāne will only open up to women. So, but thank you, sisters who do space for us.
The Tāneki comments, kia ora no uso, Matt, love you, brother. Mihi mo for your kōrero. Jeremy, again, when someone shares their vulnerabilities and trauma, what's the best way to hold space for them while ensuring we don't overuse their trauma as a tool for growth and avoid overwhelming our men in the process? That's a really good part of it.
Really good question. Really good question for a therapist. I'm not a therapist.
I was about to say, I was like,
Great question. Thank you for the question. Look, I think when the mama comes up, when the trauma comes up, let it come up. And I've learned that from my Maori therapist, Tohi, Brent Tohi. Is a beautiful he's worked with the UN Salvation Army, head of Salvation Army. He said sometimes in Te Ao Māori, we need to sit with the discomfort, let their stuff surface up. But then also you need to educate our tāne, this is no longer yours to carry. And so if you want to carry it because this has become your identity, because you identify with victimhood, then keep going until it serves you. Until it no longer serves you, are you ready to lay that down? Are you ready to face that down? And so I think, learning to move our tāne or people that we're working with to a strength-based approach. You know, you are not your trauma. Your trauma does not define you. And I always tell people who work in the space, speak to the sacred that is in him until the sacred in him remembers. Speak to the sacred within him until the sacred in him remembers. And, you know, I've seen that. I've seen gangsters turn around. I've seen drug dealers stop dealing drugs. I've seen men who have perpetrated violence stop hurting their partners and wives because I choose to speak to the sacred that is in them. Which is critical consciousness. It's seeing past the facade and the masks, seeing beyond the systems that have created our tāne to wear these masks and, you know, all these labels. Speak to the child. Always speak to the child.
Whanauga Bill reckons narrative therapy vibes here today, and I think that's kind of what we were going for, Bill. Matt is a wonderful and gifted storyteller, and so he's used that as his tool, as his patsu against this nganga, right? And so, like, call it what you want. It's kōrero tukuiho, right? I know for me personally here in Tūranganui, I'm surrounded by wahine toa. Ngāti women are well known for their ability to control a room, and much like our Ngāpuhi whanaunga up north. And so, yeah, again, Adelina, it's not about what wahine can do, it's what you can do, rather than speaking for the entirety of, Cherokee. Are there any more papa? You got 7 minutes with Matt. And then I'm fucking hungry.
What's for lunches?
I got some fry bread. It's a mangi this way.
Oh, mean.
So one of the kaupapa that's happening here in Tūranganui Akiwa is the local hapu have a noho whenua. And so this has been one of the biggest sources of trauma here in Tūranganui Akiwa. So Kaiti is one of the poorer parts of Tūranga. And the local hapu was displaced because they lived close to the river. And the council they took land, they used it to make the port and all of those public works kinds of things. And then maybe in the last 40 years, they stopped using it for their purpose. So the reason I'm telling you this is that since we've been sitting in our noho whenua, we've started to realize, hey, maybe all of these things have contributed to the trauma that we have as people who have grown up in this pohara area of town. Because we don't have any land. Our marae got pushed, got moved up back into the back corners of Kaiti. And so we're sitting there, we're having nightly wānanga around all of these. Why are we mean to homeless people? We're homeless. Why are we mean to people who are poor? We're poor. Why are we mean to people who get drunk? Why are we mean to people who have addiction issues? We are all of these things. And so all of these, there's a massive contingent of us local kids who grew up in these, we're trying to figure out how to do this, mahi, from a hapu, from a iwi kind of perspective. Do you have any whakaaro or like, do you have any guidance, Matt, when it comes to, I'm talking about a bigger group of my relations, my reanga of people who are trying to unpick all of these yucky things. That's how it was quoted to me. All of these yucky things that happen in the back of my cousins and mine minds when it comes to like colonization specifically.
I think I struggle with the term decolonize
Mm.
because that feels like a mountain, and obviously that's a mountain that we're going to need collectively to climb over.
Yeah.
And so I prefer what's tangible for me right now is to re-indigenize.
Mm.
And so we've been colonized, we're here now. How do we bring back in our, traditional ways, indigenous ways of masculinity, of healing to, the mamai that we're sitting with? And so that looks different for all of us, for different, Pasifika, Tangata Moana. And so I just think, what can I control? What can I do myself with my two hands, my two legs, my heart, my mind? Yeah, and I just think the society is only as good as the most disadvantaged, displaced people in our backyard. And so I don't want to hear your flash things if you are not looking after the most disadvantaged. I don't want to hear your kōrero if you actually don't care and are standing up for those who are displaced. To me, you just sound like noise. It's loud and noise and, attention seeking, all those things, So I just think, what can I do to help my community? It starts with yourself. While you're working on yourself, help those who are within arm's reach.
Ka pai break. I'm going to cut us off here. Tēnei te mihi atu kia koe me, mo te whāriki, mo te suku i o kōrero, i o mōhiotanga, o māramatanga. Tuari atu ki tēnei roku. Big mihi to you, brother Matt. Thank you for sharing. As always, your kōrero hits really, really hard with us. I want to close us off with a karakia, no reira kia inoi tātou. E tatua, whakatūwhira tau mai kia mātou ngā huarahi o te tika, te ora, te pono, me te māramatanga. Mā mātou koe whakamoemisi. E whakakrōrea ki tō ingoa taku. Āmini.
Amen.
Ka ki te
Thank you.
whānau.
Ka kite whānau, thank you for joining.
Right.
Have a beautiful weekend.
You too. Matt, can you stay